So you may have heard me mention in previous videos that I organize my fragrances by seasons. Now I have an Excel sheet to help me with that for all 180 of them, but I wanted to share with you a couple of fragrances to give you an idea of what I mean by seasonal fragrances. So here's an example of fragrances that I wear for the winter. I have about 50 of them, but for example, I separate them based on if they're incensey, if they're resinous, ambery, if they have vanilla, if they're leathery. So leathery being something like Rehan Cordova, which is very leather heavy. Smokiness is also an example. Even though Grand Soir is sweet, it does have a very smoky nature to it. Rifakat is very vanilla heavy, and Grand Soir is ambery, resinous. Now, my favorite, these two are my top winter fragrances. Interlude is a very incense heavy fragrance, and Boss Bottled is also more on the resinous leathery side, but the vibe that I get is more dark, cold, wintry. And when you think of the vanilla sweetness, it's more like a cupcake. So I associate that with more the holidays. So this tends to be the kind of idea or the kind of theme profiles that I wear in the winter. In the fall, I tend to leave more like gourmand, spicy, oriental. For example, this is Arabia Prestige Ariz Intense, which is their take on Angel Share. But think of an apple pie, very spicy cinnamon apple pie. Muharib is their take on Naxos, but there's tobacco. So in the fall, I wear a lot of tobacco heavy fragrances. So it's tobacco, think of cinnamon, think of spices. Vin Sable is very chocolate forward. So there's whiskey, but there's chocolate. So think chocolatey. Winter is more vanillic. Think fall, more chocolatey, more cacao. Also tobacco forward. Barouge Perle d'Or is PDM's Carlisle, which is very tobacco heavy. Yeah, you get that tobacco-ness about it. And then there's also suede-ish vibe. So Winsome by Maison Alhambra is their take on YSL Tuxedo, which gives me a suede-ish, very soft, warm vibe. So think of warm ambery and warm autumn vibes. So this is what I usually wear in the fall and what I associate with the fall. Spring tends to feel woody and green. When I think of spring, I think of florals, I think of woods, specifically vetiver. Things like Dr. Sport has a lot of vetiver. So when I think of spring, I think of that up and coming, I think of the trees, I think of grass. Even though Hawass Black is an inspiration of Hasivat, and you do get pineapple in the dry down, it's very oak moss and dirty heavy. So you get an earthiness to it. So think spring earthiness. This is Wild Neroli, which is Tom Ford's Neroli Portofino. Now this is very floral. So I think florals when I think of spring, I think garden. This is Anfar Safiro, which is Anfar's take on Sauvage Elixir. And this gives a very barbershoppy, very creamy vibe, but that lavender heavy, that's very foamy. So I think of a fresh, I think of a crispness, greenness to it when I smell it. And then finally, the two things that really make me think of spring is Creed's Original Vetiver, which is probably my top green spring fragrance. And then Green Irish Tweed by Creed is one of my top favorites. But it doesn't smell the same as it did when I got it the first time, that square black bottle. But Armas Tres Nuits kind of takes it in that realm, but it gives a very green vibe, very, think hills, think gardens, think trees, think grass, think light woods. This is what I wear in the spring. And then finally in the summer, think fresh, think citrusy, think fruity, think tropical. Now, for example, citrusy comes down to Khadlaj's Island Dreams, which is Louis Vuitton's Symphony, but it's very citrus forward, very grapefruit and ginger. Then also think aquatic, think marine, think salty, think on the beach in the Mediterranean. This is Armani Privé's Blue Turquoise, which is my favorite summer fragrance, one of my top favorite summer fragrances. And you get a very marine, and you get a very marine vibe to it, again, being by the ocean of the Mediterranean. Then you have your standard blue fragrances. This is supposed to be Levante Blue, which is Bleu de Chanel or de Parfum. Very, very citrus forward. You get that labdanum in the beginning, but there's a lot of citruses mixed into it. So there's a citrusy, but there's also a darkness about it. Then of course you get the fresh, you get a bit of a fresh. This kind of reminds you of like being out of the shower. And for a foodie example, I have Barara King, which is very much herba pura. However, it's not so heavy on the fruits. There's a musk in there this is a masculine leaning herba pura, one of my favorites. So this is kind of giving you the idea. I forgot about the tropical, which is also in the summer, which is Hawas Malibu, a great inspiration of JPG's Le Beau Le Parfum. Beautiful, but think of tropical, think of mango, of coconut. I'm not a huge coconut fan, but think of mangoes, pineapples, fruits, baskets. So that's what I think of summer. So that's just a small sample of the many fragrances that I have organized by seasons. This is just to give you an idea of kind of when I think about fragrances, when I think of profiles, what vibe it gives me. And of course, I organize them all in an Excel sheet based on grading, based on season, based on profile, etc. Just a little obsessive compulsive. Just a little organized because I have to be. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, gave you an idea of my organization. Do you organize your perfumes in the same way, or do you just wear whatever you want? Which is actually what you could do. You could just wear whatever you want. There's no reason why you only can wear this in the summer. You can wear this whenever you want. However, there's certain things that are more fitting for the environment. I wouldn't wear a bathing suit to a funeral, and a black suit wouldn't exactly be fitting in the beach either. But everything's on a spectrum, so you can kind of go your own way. There are things that are more appropriate for certain circumstances, but do you. Fragrance is your ability to express yourself, to express your personality. Take this as just my guide. So if you do something similar, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Thank you for this mini unravel, and I look forward to seeing you on many future unravelings soon.